We're back. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and we're back to Legacy European Tour Sofia. We're playing Modern, and Mengucci's fighting Ragda's Scam. So yeah, so let's see where we are right now. Andrea's really low on life total, and this is how he actually vanquished the previous game. So this might be tricky.
Yeah, exactly. We probably will not learn what happened with the Fury, Grief, and all those scenarios, but what we see right now is a Questing Druid and a DRC facing off against Reflection of
Ooh,
Kikijiki, and
that was confident. That was
yep.
a really confident fast monkey slam.
Is Andrea just hellbent, no cards in hand?
Oh, that's an unusual situation for this deck, right? Between iterations, between all the preordains, all the droids.
Mm-hmm.
So of course the best top deck is Expressive Iteration. There's probably no doubt about that. Actually, maybe even Questing Druid, because you can immediately follow it up with the Druid as a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Hop.
Fury. Not quite there, one mana
That's
away.
close. That's close. Attack you for 3. You cannot block with DRC because it has to attack because of Delirium. Because we've got creature, instant, sorcery, land, and even artifacts with 5 types.
Mm-hmm.
So now Antonio fetches something out. Andrea will be down to 3 this combat, so a fast monkey doesn't kill Andrea yet, but a lightning bolt very much does.
Yeah, I believe there might be some lack of clarity life points wise, as I'm not sure if the life points are represented that correctly, given that they don't seem to be changing.
Okay,
And this lightning bolt targeting this DRC probably,
so yeah,
clarifies the situation.
yeah. We see a topland, unfortunately for Andrea. But there's double land in Antonio's hand. Do I see correctly?
Yeah, there was double land, so this Fury is going to stabilize the board. The shifting perception of the life totals.
Should you bubble now? Should you not? Oh, I think I would wait. Just play Fury, wait, and not get any potential grief at target. Unless he peeps to see if there's a counter spell on top.
Yeah, you could wait, but it's very tempting to play the Fury, so he did that at sorcery speed, opening himself to the grief topic, so that is the immediate punish for that line of play.
Immediately punished. Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah.
So now that we know that the players are at 9 and 14 life points respectively, Andrea is still winning the race, especially with the DRC involved. Hitting with Fury for 6, that is bringing Antonio down to 8.
It's basically a 3/2 menace creature. We extend the hand and we see Andrea Mengucci take down round 1 with Rug Adventures. Well, well, well. That was certainly a performance. So, actually, I think looking at these games, I think it looked basically like Blue Red Murktide. And okay, we're immediately switching to the backup, so no time to chat. We see Jędrek Schmidt, a renowned Polish control player, versus Luigi Tranchini on Golgari Yawgmoth, and we see ending that, Stern scolding that.
The swift hand movement on this Stern Scalding, Jędrek was ready to hit any creature that was coming his way. Probably hoping to nab a Grist with his Stern Scalding, but also not unhappy to get a Strangleroot Geist either, so. Players are in game 3 currently, and it seems like with high life totals, Jędrek is gonna be happy to have his counter magic up and be ready to, just answer threats one by one as Luigi is trying to navigate his land light hand.
Oh, and we see Narset come down. Okay, let me pull this one up. And Narset, Pater of Veils. We haven't seen her in a while. Why would you play Narset?
It's mostly because of the passive. Each opponent cannot draw more than one card each turn.
Yeah, each opponent, crucially, right?
Exactly,
so it's
each
not
opponent.
symmetrical.
It's a pretty solid line of text when you are trying to fight against the One Ring, up the Beanstalk, or even Yawgmoth, Thran Physician, which is present in this very matchup. So
Yep.
it makes sense that Jendrik would staff his control deck with Narset. And we're gonna see another activation.
Yeah, we saw Narset into Narset previously. I think we can see the One Ring.
Yep, Leyline Binding, the One Ring. Those are the
Uh,
options. I think Jendrik is limited on his mana, only 3 lands and only 2 colors of mana, which means that the domain requirement of Leyline Binding is not fulfilled, and the card costs
a lot of
4 mana right now.
yeah. I remember in the past these Narset decks also play these bold flip lands, which are spells, just to be able to find a spell off of Narset, or something like Juari Disruption or the the bold lands. But here doesn't seem like it.
That role has been supplanted by Lorin Revealed, a card from
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
Okay, so now we see an attack kill of Narset. Jendrik doesn't mind because he has another Narset. Now Halfling could be tricky because it turns off all the counter magic, but now depending on the Triumph that Jendrik finds, he might be able to play Binding now, like Zagoth Triumph. So he's now lacking only red, so Binding for 2.
He's gonna be Zagoth Triumphing, Lorin Revealing.
Shortcutting, so that he doesn't present the deck and then reshuffle again. Very efficient on Jendrik's part, but as he himself has said, if you want to play blue-white control, you have to be efficient. You cannot slouch around.
Yeah, when your only realistic win con is Kahira and Solitude beatdowns, then for sure you need to keep the pace of the game and play reasonably fast.
And how relevant do you think is it in these control decks to play Kahira, which is indicated on the bottom with the Gramagic podcast token?
I mean, it's bad, but it's free, right? So you play it, and by bad I mean it's actually still great, right? Just the amount of benefits you get from playing a companion is pretty huge. Both a card that you can grab and exile to your Solitude if you need a pitch, or a card that you can just deploy on the battlefield, and sometimes it's relevant enough. We see a Gaia Reach Sanitarium in play.
The last time I saw this card was in my own deck in Pioneer 3 years ago. So let me share the card with chat. So it's a colorless land that for 2 mana and a tap makes each player symmetrical, draw and then discard. Now the key thing is, Narset prevents the opponent from drawing extra cards, so you can essentially make them draw in the draw step, activate, and they just discard, but you do draw this card. So if the opponent is empty-handed though, you can activate it on the opposing upkeep, they draw this card, and then they don't have a draw step because they cannot draw more due to Narset's restriction. So
exactly, it is a sort of a combo land with
situation. Yeah,
it's sort of a combo land with Narset. That is the purpose of the land, and that mana base. That is why it is included, and that is why it's there in the first place.
Yeah. So right now, if you were to put the advantage bar, would it be to the Jendrik side or firmly to the Jendrik side?
Definitely firmly Jendrik's side. There is, end of turn dress down, which made it so that the young wolf doesn't even have Undying, and Supreme Verdict was able to clean the young wolf properly. A very powerful effect.
So we see Narset, we see Gaia Reach Sanitarium. Is it the way to play control deck in Modern? Because we normally see mid-range-ish shells in 4-color, right? We haven't seen an actual proper, let's say proper Drogo-ish control deck. So this is the way. Is this the way to go, or do you think you could tackle it from a different angle as well?
You probably can, do it in a number of ways, but Jendrik's approach here seems to, have a way to take over the game with Narset. Gaia's Reach Sanitarium once he has accrued enough card advantage with the One Ring. So it does make sense in that sense.
What's the way to get rid of the One Ring? Because Jendrik is at 8. One Ring is on 3 counters, soon enough on 4. You don't want to just lose out of nowhere to damage, Strangleroot attacking you.
Yeah, you wouldn't. You can just play an extra copy of the One Ring, or you could play a Teferi Time Raveler and bounce the original One Ring into your hand. So your options are plentiful.
Yeah, if you're really desperate, you can ending your own One Ring.
True.
You can't leyline binding it though.
Yeah, leyline mining is only opponent's control, so you want to avoid making that mistake where you try to plan a game around the line of exiling the One Ring with your leyline binding when once it gets too scary for you to keep, and once you lose too many life points, and it's really easy to fall into that pitfall of thinking that you can leyline binding it, but you actually can't. It is opponent's control.
Yeah, now we see Dress Down picked up from Narset. So now it looks like a tap outish control deck basically, but the strength is that yes, you've got multiple permanents, but you can still hold up a counter spell in case something were to go wrong. And I think this is a big strength of a control deck, contrary to 4-color, where if you play against stuff like, Belcher, Living End, Station Breach, you're just hoping they don't have something. But
Mhm.
Yendrek actually can say, actually, no, counter spell. So that's a good insulation in these prolonged games.
Yeah, and we've seen Solitude hitting an insect token, just for probably just for the body, the tempo, like the combination of everything. That 3/2 lifelinker is gonna be helpful at offsetting the One Ring pain too. As we see, Jendrik doesn't even bother drawing 4 extra cards on his end step because
I
he
mean,
just doesn't want to
lose
risk
time, right?
losing more life points.
Oh, yeah, life points, but also, it takes manual labor. I think the timer is correct, but I listened to Jendrik talk about the deck, and he said that his goal is, of course, to have the best result he can, with preferably at least day twoing, and he said he wants no draws at the end of the day. It's his second goal, no draws. And he does seem like the type of control player who wouldn't have any draws. He's moving very fast. He knows exactly what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Pick up Kahira, play Kahira, smash you with Vigilance, and he will actually just win on damage probably in just a few attacks.
Yeah, it was actually a Kahira that crucially pumped Solitude up to 4 power, which let the Solitude kill Grease in 1 attack. So that was a pretty important Kahira.
Yeah, and I asked you earlier whether Kahira is relevant. Well,
It's been relevant here,
literally, yeah, very
quite,
relevant
quite
here.
relevant to me.
In other games, you could, for example, take up Kahira, pitch it to Solitude as well. It's kind of weird scenario. So yeah, it does have some utility. Now, is there any way for Luigi to come back? 5 mana on his side?
It's gonna be pretty rough. I struggle to imagine a set of outs that is going to actually get through Jendrek's defenses, and I'm sure that Jendrek is eager to start using Gaia's Reach Sanitarium
Yeah,
real soon.
yeah. So we got Code of Calling for 1. Um, let's see what that actually is. Sometimes we see players code for 1 for Halfling just to enable uncounterability.
It was actually X2, so
Oh,
we
was
get
it? Oh,
to
okay.
clean up the ferry
Okay, it
or
is
go
X2.
face, maybe. Yep, 7 life. Jendrek just needs to make sure to defeat the temptation to tap the One Ring right
Yeah,
now
yeah,
because that would
basically.
be
Lethal.
actually lethal.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, that's Luigi's out. Now, preferably, Luigi would just code instant speed to get that out of nowhere, but Teferi prevents that from happening.
Yes,
So
only
no
sorcerer speed
trickery.
plays from Luigi on this stage of the game.
And now, the life loss of the One Ring does hurt you, but Solitude thankfully provides life gain. So, you lose 3, 4, but you also gain 3 or 4 life. So that's a wash.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Full grip, full battlefield, a lot of lands. Jendrik has got everything he could ever need.
He could activate the One Ring. Is there a second copy in his hand? I'm not quite sure.
Activate Narset, take the counter spell, and I think Luigi will just pack it up soon enough. But again, Jendrik will just finish it off in the next combat, probably.
Yeah, counter spell was exactly what Jendrek wanted here. Just the ultimate feeling of safety and just providing Luigi with a lack of options. And
There is a Boseiju, but even unlocking your own grist, it doesn't take you just
yeah,
that
where
far.
does that lead you, right? You get a grist, but what's next? Well,
Yep.
let's find out.
Jędrek will say, okay, activate Gaia Reach Sanitarium in response. Only I draw, but you discard, and that leaves him empty-handed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jędrek on top of his game, he knows when to do it. And now thinking if there is any way this could go wrong for me.
No, probably seems fine. I guess Grease could deal with Narset, which technically breaks the lock, but then there is also 7 damage from Kahira and Solitude coming, and that would put Luigi on 1 life. Not even able to activate the Thran Physician Yogmov for the rest of the game if that happens. So
We see really exciting decks so far, right? We've got blue-white control with the Narset angle. We see non-Murktide with Druid. We see Golgari Yawgmoth with Agatha, which I saw while Luigi was looking through his deck.
Wait, you mean Agatha's Soul Cauldron, or you mean actual Agatha?
I do mean the Cauldron, yeah.
All right, that does make sense.
So yeah, very exciting decks. And we see Jędrek pull, yeah, just take the draw, not even tapping the one ring. Who are the casters? The casters are myself, Skóra, also known as Islands in Front, and a very popular content creator, streamer, Kanister.
Hi.
Pozdrawiamy zawodnika Jung Młody.
Alright, so now that Grist has died, I believe that opponent is almost fully locked from Jędrek's perspective. Another copy of the One Ring, getting rid of the burdensome counters. And now, end of turn, we're gonna see a Nurturing Peatland draw. That is fine.
That is legal. And then activate right after. Yeah, oh, cheeky. That's very cheeky. Okay, take a draw. And let's see what the draw is. Pass the turn. Okay, so this game could have been over at the 11th minute mark, but it will still end this with the same result, but at like 3rd minute mark.
Yep, Jędrek gets to activate Gaia's Reach Sanitarium once again in Luigi's upkeep, and that is enough to prompt a concession from Luigi.
Yep, so Jędrek takes it down 2-1. Azorius control, now set Gaia Reach Sanitarium against Golgari Yawgmoth. That was very decisive, not gonna lie. This game was very, very decisive. It wasn't even close now. Admittedly, Luigi was missing a lot of land drops early in the game, so he couldn't get on the board, which is much easier to contain when the opponent has just Young Wolf. And you also play Exile Removal, so like Young Wolf is actually not even a problem. And actually, Jędrek's showing us a few more cards for content. We can see Stern Scolding, we can see On Thin Ice. Okay, Jędrek really doesn't want to register Path to Exile.
Who does, right? Nowadays, it's, I guess, Burn players maybe sometimes have that feeling, and well, it makes sense in Burn. It's not too bad in that specific deck, but besides that, control players just prefer to use removal spells that are not inherently card disadvantage.
Yep. So now they're sideboarding. We can see Luigi had a Walking Ballista, which makes sense in an Agatha's Cauldron deck, right? You can grant any creature the ability to shoot damage as if it was a Ballista. Now, that will indeed conclude round 1 for us. And yeah, exciting new decks, exciting gameplay overall. A lot of back and forth, especially the Manguchi deck.
It was a pretty good watch, yeah. Those were pretty good matches to commentate on, and despite these small technical
hiccups, yeah.
It was just a pretty good round, and I'm satisfied, and I'm ready to see what the tournament brings up next.
Yeah, I will happily see what happens next. Now, reminder to everybody, we've got a separate pair of casters, Filipa and Martin user. So we will be switching iteratively every other round. So you will see them next. But Kanister, what deck in particular, if you had to choose one, what would you like to see on coverage today?
Lately, I've been going through a phase of loving Amulet Titan once again. So I would don't be unhappy to see that deck on coverage doing some fun stuff with Valakutes, Steaming Grove Chambers, especially Cultivator Colossus. That's just like my favorite part of Amulet lately. You just play the Colossus and then you spend the next 3 minutes placing lands into play and tapping some of them, producing 50 mana and going further with into your combo turn. That's my jam lately.
Would you say it's advantaged against Up the Beanstalk?
It really depends, and the specific answers that the Beanstalk decks are playing will influence the texture of the matchup a lot, so I am not confident in making such a claim, but certainly it is advantage in the amount of fun it is providing me with when I'm playing with Amulet lately, so
Yeah, nice, nice. Amulet is a good, is an interesting choice. I'm curious if we see a lot of linear decks like Mill, Belcher, Living End, these types of decks that want to exploit Up the Beanstalk and their limited ways of interacting. But then on the flip side, you've got Scam, and then you try to get cute, you try to assemble your cute interactions
and
with
then you
Living
get
End,
griefed
and you get griefed
twice.
into Dotty Voidwalker, which leaves you empty-handed and pretty unhappy with what's happened. So. Yeah, that's it for round one. It's been exciting. It's been exciting. 300 players fighting for prizes, fighting for qualifications. Yeah, we'll see you round two.
Welcome to the Legacy European Tour. We are here in the Grand Open Qualifier in Sofia. The format is modern. I am Philippe and I'm joined by Martin Juza. We are going to be one of the casting duos for the day. We are really excited to get into round 2 out of 9 rounds of day 1. Please remember that the top 64 or 72 advances into day 2. So these players that we chose are already doing pretty well. 1-0, and we chose some very fun matches. So one of them, you have to tell me about it. Gruul Scapeshift.
Yeah, Gruul Scapeshift, pretty typical modern deck, especially from before Modern Horizons came into the format. But we thought that the person on the other side of the battlefield, Pierre Dejean, was playing 10 rack. Unfortunately, he mislabeled the deck, and he is actually playing mono white Hammer. But that's still going to be a cool matchup to watch. Obviously, I think Hammer should be typically favored in a matchup like this, especially because Mattia Panico is not playing a lot of interaction. I see one Lightning Bolt, one Path to Exile. Not a lot of ways to interact with the Hammer. I haven't seen Hammer do too well lately. At the Pro Tour, it wasn't one of the most played decks. I don't think it didn't really have a top finish. So yeah, I'm curious to see if if the deck is still well positioned, or if there are going to be some other decks, especially up the Beanstalk. That's been the talk of Modern lately. So I kind of want to see if that card is really, the real deal.
Yeah, we see that card everywhere. Now there's some lists that are experimenting with Cascade, getting up the Beanstalk. We see it in a lot of decks, also a lot of Evoke,
Mhm.
also known as Scam, a lot of Scam. Even Zoo now as a variation that is
Yeah.
playing with Scam as well, trying to get those Evoke cards. Fury obviously being a card that kind of killed the creature decks, right, in Modern, since it
Yeah,
started to be
it's
popular.
hard to play one toughness creatures in Modern when your opponent can just literally kill them for free. So
Yeah, and we have here our players getting ready and shuffling up. Mattia on the left playing the Gruul Scapeshift, and on the right we have Pierre not playing 10 rack but Hammer Time. The thing with labeling on Melee is that sometimes the players choose the first option that's available, and by alphabetic order, this one is the first. So we have a strong start here from our Hammer player.
yeah, the way the Hammer Time deck works is it is using cards like Pure Steel Paladin and Sigarda's Aid, which is what Pierre has on the battlefield right now, to equip Polus's Hammer on a creature, which the deck can also get with cards like Stoneforge Mystic. So a lot of synergy. The deck is also really fast. On the other hand, the Scapeshift deck typically needs like 4 turns at least to really ramp up. Use cards like Sakura Tripelder. You can defend yourself with cards like Lightning Bolt usually. Run in 6 if your opponent has 1 toughness creatures, but we know that Pierre does not really have a lot of those unless he's playing cards like Memnite.
And how can Mattia interact with this Hammer deck?
Yeah, the cards like Lightning Bolt are typically what you play as interaction. You can also use the One Ring to give yourself protection for 1 turn. So that is definitely a thing that Mattia can do to buy himself a little bit of extra time. Meanwhile, he is using a Farseek on turn 2, so he will be able to drop a 4 casting cost card on turn 3 if he does have one, like the One Ring.
And a lot of decks playing the One Ring now. Obviously, Tron being one of the decks that got a lot of advantage from the One Ring, but other decks like this one also playing the One Ring.
Yeah,
And-
Ring's been one of the best cards in Modern ever since it got printed.
Oh, there it is. It's Hammer time.
It is Hammer Time. So take a lot of damage. This is Pierre's turn 2.
Yeah, down to 9 life, Mattia. But there's no second land from Pierre, or at least not played yet.
Yeah, I think Pierre is more than happy with a 2-turn clock here, even though he has only 1 land. So the question now is, does Mattia have the One Ring? Does he have something like a Path to Exile? Yeah, Ren N6 is certainly not going to be too helpful in this situation. Yeah, it's really hard to play 1 toughness creatures just in general. It's not just Fury, it's also Ren N6. It's a 2-mana planeswalker that not only does it provide you with value by returning fetch lands from your graveyard and essentially giving you infinite land drops, but also pings 1 toughness creatures. So right now, playing decks with Llanowar Elves or Dragons with Rage Channeler and those kinds of creatures, really tough to keep them alive for more than one turn.
Yeah, I completely agree. And now the One Ring as well coming in clutch to give protection for all turn and making these creature decks and more aggressive decks struggle even more. Okay, so we do have the Dryad here, but we still need some kind of follow-up. Land go.
There is a 10 power flyer on the other side of the battlefield. I don't think the Dryad has reach. It does not. It lets you play an additional land on each of your turns. But it does not have reach, so let's see if Mattia has anything against the 10 power flyer.
Oh, Shadow Spear as well. And another hammer, and this is it. The Shadow Spear not only gives lifelink, but it also gives trample.
All right, there it is. Here it takes game one. This is how I would imagine this matchup to go most of the time. If Pierre has a good draw, there is not a whole lot Mattia can do about it. I mean, he did have a decent draw as well. Turn 2 Farseek, turn 3 Dryad, make some extra line drops, but he did not have any interaction, and that is exactly how the aggressive decks punish you in this format.
Post sideboard, what do you think we're going to see from Mattia's side in order to try to not let Emmer win so quickly?
Yeah, Mattia needs to bring in cheap interaction. He needs the 1 mana instant speed spells. We saw the Naya Triome, so he can play Path to Exile. He's probably going to have some extra lightning bolts in his sideboard if he doesn't have 4 in the main deck already. Other than that, something like an Engineered Explosives or some kind of Sweeper Anger of the Gods, perhaps, something along those lines is what I would be looking at for bringing in. He also has 4 copies of Wish in the main deck, so he might leave some of those cards in the sideboard to be able to grab them. Chalice of the Void is a card that decks typically bring in against the Cascade decks, but we know that Pierre has a lot of 1 mana cards, so perhaps Mattia might be thinking, yeah, maybe if I bring in Chalice into play, but at the same time it turns off your own lightning bolts and Path to Exile, so that could be quite risky. On the other hand, we have Pierre, who is already his deck is already sort of, I don't want to say pre-sideboarded, but his deck is already built pretty well or set up pretty well against this slow deck of Mattia. So what he's going to be bringing in, something like a Pithing Needle could come in if you want to stop the One Ring, but I don't think you want to really bother with that too much. You just want to keep your deck as proactive and as linear as possible.
Yeah, I completely agree. And why do you think Mattia here chose Scapeshift for this tournament? Obviously, as you said, Emmer hasn't been quite as popular as it was in the past. Last year, I feel like a lot of Emmer players, now not as many. I'm actually curious to see our meta breakdown for the weekend. But do you think Scapeshift is well positioned against these Evoke decks, these Bean decks?
I think it's just one of those modern decks. Like, that's the thing about modern. There's 40 different decks that you can play, and 35 of those decks, or all 40 of those decks, can easily win a tournament on any given day. So even if you spend 2 months playing modern and literally testing every matchup and every deck, you're gonna find out that the best deck that weekend wins 3% more than the other deck. So modern is a format where a lot of players just stick to the deck they like, and I think that is the right approach. I think that's the way to go. It is much better to just learn the deck you're playing and know that you know every matchup, you know how to sideboard, you know how to approach against every archetype, and it is in my opinion better to just champion one deck than to switch decks every weekend. So I wouldn't say that Scapeshift is necessarily super well positioned at the moment, but it's just one of those decks, and everything in modern is basically 50-50. So if Mattia knows what he's doing, then I think it's a fine choice.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I've been playing more modern lately, and I've noticed that every deck has like a dedicated Discord channel where people talk about their deck in specific, and they really try to learn every intricacy of the decks and try to master it. And as you said, sometimes in modern is more about being a master with a certain deck than just playing the best deck, which there is no best deck.
Yeah, exactly. That's just how modern is. That's how modern's always been. The thing is also, like, there's 40 decks, but there's only 15 sideboard cards you can have. So you can't really prepare for everything. You're gonna obviously have some cards in the sideboard. Like Chalice of the Void is probably the most popular, most played card at the PT. I think was Chalice, because it stops the Cascade cards. So you can prepare for a lot of decks, but there's still 20 other decks that you're not going to have sideboard cards against. So any deck can do well on any given day, really. One more card that Pierre can have in the sideboard is, now that I'm talking about Chalice, is Dranid Magistrate, which is the 2-mana 1/3 that stops the opponent from playing cards from anywhere other than their hand. Which means that if you suspend Search for Tomorrow, or you want to use the 3-mana Wish, then you're not going to be able to play the card because Magistrate is going to stop you from doing so.
I'm going to put the card here on the screen. Yeah, that's for sure a card that we might see come here post sideboard, and I'm really curious to see how Mattia is going to approach this match, and if Emmer can do again the Emmer time. Double Emmer is just when your opponent is playing Emmer time, and they just are able to turn 2 play Emmer, turn 3 play another Emmer.
Yeah. I mean, this deck is capable of some really fast opening draws. It's also one of those decks that you want to mulligan aggressively with, because if you have the right pieces, you can beat the opponent in 2 or 3 turns. If you don't have the right pieces, then your deck doesn't really do anything. So even if you mulligan to 6 or 5, that is much better, especially with the London mulligan, than keeping a 7-card hand that is non-functional and doesn't really, have the combo pieces you need to pressure the opponent. So Pierre's definitely going to be looking for a fast hand. Meanwhile, Mattia is going to be looking for those lightning bolts or, Path to Exiles or whatever else he might have.
Mattia on the play as well, which will help a lot in this matchup.
Yeah, for sure. That's a story of not just Modern, it's a story of Magic. If you're on the play, that is typically a pretty good advantage.
And let us know, Twitch chat, what deck is your pet Modern deck? What would you bring to this tournament if you were playing? Okay, we see here already Mattia searching for a land.
But there is Engineered Explosives on the bottom of the deck.
Ooh.
Mattia cracking a Wooded Foothills turn 1, so that probably signals something like Search for Tomorrow. I don't think you would fetch on your own turn to shock yourself to start representing a Lightning Bolt already. That would be kind of a flex.
The bluff is not worth the 3 life. So here, as you said, we might see turn 1 play, and there it is.
All right, there's a Search for Tomorrow. The thing with Dranid Magistrate in this matchup is you are bringing a 2-mana card with 3 toughness against a deck that is going to have Lightning Bolts. So in Modern or in Magic in general, if you're trading down on mana, that is typically not something that advantages you. If you're spending more mana than your opponent is spending, that is basically trading their cards for yours, then they're going to be able to double spell or triple spell or play more cards than you. So playing a 2-mana card with 3 toughness that dies to Lightning Bolt is not great, but at the same time, it does stop cards like Search for Tomorrow or Wish if the opponent doesn't have an answer. So it is still a good card to bring in. It just feels really bad when the opponent has the answer.
And we see here that Pierre playing Esper Sentinel, that's one of those cards that it doesn't seem that bad, but you can start drawing cards because every time your opponent is casting a non-creature spell, Mattia needs to be paying mana, otherwise Pierre is going to get some card advantage out of it. And you don't want to give card advantage to a deck that is searching for a specific card like Emmer.
Yeah, Esper Sentinel is a really cool card. I just like the card in general. I like to pick it up in cube. It's just one of those cards that makes the life of control players or players with these cheap burn spells kind of miserable, and I like drawing cards just like anyone.
Everyone likes drawing cards in Magic, especially blue players. Although these days green is getting a lot of good draw cards like Up the Beanstalk.
Yeah, and also like everyone kind of has access to the the colorless Chase the Mind Sculptor, right? You can play the One Ring in any deck. So speaking of the One Ring, I came across the Lord of the Rings game from 20 years ago, and yeah, they also have the One Ring, and they also have all these cool cards. So kind of brings back memories.
And we see here a Streak Protector. So this card probably comes from sideboard. It's played a lot in Lotos because if you have this card and you actually play a Lotos, you are not able to sacrifice.
Yeah, that is a card that you play in the Azorius Lotus Field version. That's mostly Pioneer deck. The Strict Proctor sort of counters your own Lotus Field trigger.
Mhm.
Obviously, you don't pay the 2, so you don't have to sacrifice. You're up to 5 mana on turn 3. Here, Strict Proctor. We'll see if it does anything relevant in this matchup. Obviously, it counters the trigger from the One Ring, for example. So it does do something. It stops Valakut triggers.
Oh, that's a good one. And also it has flying, which is very relevant since Mattia will not be able to block it if it gets hammered.
Yeah, I think there is the One Ring in Mattia's hand, so he can play it. He's not gonna get protection. Pierre is gonna be able to draw a card thanks to the Esper Sentinel. It would also mean that Mattia would tap out in the process. Does he want to do that? I mean, does he have any other plays? I see a Ren and 6 that can kill the Esper Sentinel, but that's also gonna take an entire turn.
Yeah, and you have to pay 3 mana if you don't want to make Pierre draw a card. So Mattia paid 2, so Pierre should be able to draw, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Returns a land. Interesting. Oh, I think Mattia is sitting on a Boseiju. That's what's going on.
Oh, that's a way to deal with
With Hammer, yeah.
yeah. Even I think Sentinel is an artifact creature.
Looks like the Search for Tomorrow was the first spell that Pierre drew a card for, so the Sentinel only triggers once, so
yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, Sentinel would be a little too overpowered if you could draw a card for every time your opponent played a spell. Yeah, Pierre has an Gunjo, and now he's thinking, okay, well, what do I do now? My opponent didn't pay for the Surge. They wanted to keep mana up. Clearly, if they had Ren and 6 in hand, they could have just played both without letting me draw a card. So why would they want to have 2 mana untapped instead of 1? Lightning Bolt costs 1. Do I really need to play around something else? What costs 2 mana in this matchup? I think Boseiju should be a card that comes to your mind in this situation.
Yeah, and here we see that Pierre already has the Sigarda's 8 in the board, a couple of creatures, but Mattia leaving some mana up. Pierre decides to attack the Ren. Okay, and we do see the Boseiju that you talked about, targeting the Sigarda's 8. In response, we have an Hammer, and hammering the Flyer. It will resolve. Pierre can access now the library to get a basic land.
Oh, that's a lot of damage coming through.
Yeah, Mattia needs a way to deal with that now. It's 11 power flying.
Yeah, Mattia does have the One Ring, but that Strict Proctor is going to say no.
And that card that we were not sure why it was entering sideboard, I was like, why is this entering? Doing pretty well now, keeping Mattia in check against that One Ring.
What Mattia can do is he can activate Ren and 6 to return the Boseiju, and he can deal with the Hammer again. That's exactly what he does. Yeah, Ren and 6 is really... If you make a list of like top 5 cards in Modern, is Ren and 6 going to be top 5? I think it will be. It just does so many things. It kills all the X1s. It basically means you never miss a land drop. Like, it works really well with the fetch lands. It also rebuys Boseiju, which is basically how Mattia is able to stay alive in this game.
Would Grief be in your top 5?
Probably not. I think the One Ring would be top 5. Something, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would put Up the Beanstalk in there now.
Okay, paying for the trigger there. And let's search our library.
At some point, Lightning Bolt was probably in the top 5. Maybe Counterspell is one of the strongest cards. So Mattia's up to six lands in play. Does he have anything like Primeval Titan?
I
Perhaps
just see, I think I
Scapeshift?
see 2-1 rings and a Boseiju, but I might be wrong. At least one that is for sure that we saw. Mattia is down to 16 lives, so Pierre still does not have lethal on the board, but we know that a second Hammer might arrive. There is Boseiju that we know of.
Yeah, Pierre could have something like Stoneforge Mystic or like another hammer. Certainly a lot of good draws available for him. Mattia only with that one Boseiju to defend himself right now.
Yeah, there's 2-1 rings. A Boseiju and I think a land.
Okay, but even if Pierre does find another copy of Hammer, he does need to also find a way to equip it to one of the creatures.
And what do you think of this decision to just tap out to use the Boseiju now? On Hammer?
I'm not sure if that's like in the upkeep after you draw a card or.
Okay, we get their planes. Now Pierre access to 5 mana, and there's, I think, 3 cards in his hand. Okay, yeah, that was in the upkeep. We're drawing now.
I think Mattia was afraid of what's the card called? It's Surge of Salvation. I think that's the card that Hammer plays that gives your permanents hexproof until end of turn. So that would be the card to play around if you wanna do something before your opponent draws a card. I think that was in the upkeep to prevent Pierre from possibly playing a Surge or some other ways to give his card protection. So now Mattia's tapping 6 lands to play the ring, and Pierre is asking, okay, are you paying for the Sentinel or are you paying for the Strict Proctor? I think the answer was pay for the Strict Proctor trigger, so Mattia has protection now, so he's gonna essentially get a Time Walk.
And go.
Solitude. I think Solitude is also a card that's mostly out of the Hammer Time sideboard.
I think I never saw this card being casted and not evoked.
Yeah, it looks like Pierre might have done some heavy sideboarding actually. The Solitude finishes off the Ren and 6 there. Does Pierre have a follow-up?
Yeah, for sure. I know that.
Oh, he has a lot of cards. Yeah, I think I see a
Yeah.
Stoneforge Mystic in there.
There's an Hammer.
Okay, we know that Mattia still has the Boseiju in hand,
Yeah.
so
And there's another Solitude as well.
yeah, both players have to sort of try to figure out how exactly to sequence their cards, what to play around. Sigarda's Aid.
Okay, that's a start. Still 4 mana available for Pierre here.
There's a Stoneforge, so he's going to be able to find another hammer or something else. He pays for his own Strict Proctor. That is a fun interaction. I'm going to play my 4 mana Stoneforge Mystic to find. I think that's Cauldron Complete. Not 100% sure.
Okay, let's see what Mattia can do. Pierre just completely tapped out. Down to 15 because of the one ring. Okay. One time I was playing Merfolk against Tron, and they lost because of the one ring. They had me completely trapped with a breach. I could not attack. They were controlling my turns, and they managed to lose to their own one ring.
Yeah, the One Ring is like, if you have been playing Modern a year ago, and you liked, or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and you like cards like Jay's the Mind Sculptor, which I guess it was banned at some point for a couple of years. That card essentially just got replaced by the One Ring. You can now play Jace in any deck because it is colorless, and it also gives you it gives you protection from everything for one turn. So it is funny how we go from like, oh wow, this is one of the most busted cards ever printed, banned in Modern for a long time, to, you know what, we're just gonna print a card that's basically better in almost every aspect, and it's also colorless. It draws you more cards, gives you protection, and you can now play it in any deck.
Yeah, this card is so good, and the fact that you can just like replace it, like get protection over again. Even like some decks just play the fairy, bounce it back, play it again.
Yeah.
You kind of can manage this life. So the cost of paying, you can always manage it a bit.
Ring number 2, Pierre says double trigger. Mattia pays for both. So seven mana, yeah, that's about a reasonable price. I would say to pay for something like the One Ring. So
Nerfed. And we see here the one ring now, protection once again. So this turn, Mattia is safe.
yeah, I think there is another ring in Mattia's hand. So all he's looking for now is either Wish or the cards like Scapeshift or Primeval Titan, or with something like maybe Prismatic Omen, or whatever the way he has to close out these games.
And as an aggro player, I can tell you this one ring, it's so bothering, because every time your opponent is playing it, like they're just going to replace it. They keep gaining protection, and there's not much you can do.
So there's the Wish. So Mattia can play anything out of his sideboard. The question is it going to be something that wins the game on the spot, even with Strict Proctor on the battlefield?
And this card has been MVP. The Protector has been just keeping the game on going.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if the Proctor was something else. Maybe it was stopping Pierre from playing the Stoneforge earlier to be able to get the second hammer out of his deck and still pay for the trigger. So it certainly did some good work. It stopped the ring from coming into play on turn 3. It certainly did a lot of work. The question is, what if it was another action card? Like, would Pierre have already won?
Another one. Okay, so we are paying 1 for the Esper Sentinel, 2 for the Protector. Legendary rule. So once again, we have protection. And Matthias is kind of staying alive.
Yeah, this just feels bad. Like you're on the other side of ring into ring into ring. That's essentially time walk into time walk into time walk. I'm making land drops. I'm drawing cards.
There's only 4 rings, so only 1 more left.
Yeah. I wonder if Mattia has one in the sideboard for the
Wish.
wishes. Yeah, or if he's just running 4 in the main deck. I think ring is one of those cards that you would typically rather have in the main.
And I just see that Matthias access to so many cards.
Oh, there is Escape Shift as well, so he doesn't need to get rid of the Strict Proctor. At the same time, he already demonstrated he wanted to try to play around some protection card like Surge of Salvation. So he might also be thinking, well, sure, I can try to go for it. I can use Wish perhaps to get something like a Lightning Bolt in the sideboard, or Path to Exile, or Explosives, or something along those lines. But is that going to be enough to play around what I think my opponent might have in their hand to still be able to cast Scapeshift afterwards? Because if that doesn't work out and Mattia taps out without killing the Proctor, he's not going to be able to win this turn, I don't think. There's the Wish.
There's the Wish, that's 4 mana, right?
Depends on whether he wants to pay.
Yeah. So there's a choice to be made here about the Esper Sentinel.
It's a lot of wishes in Mattia's hand. That's a lot of cards in Mattia's hand. So we know he has at least 1 or 2 more wishes. There is a Scapeshift, a couple of lands, and the Besieger, I think.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
Pierre just pointing at the Esper Sentinel, like, so are you paying the cost or not for it? Can I draw a card?
Yeah, I think Mattia is saying, you know what? I think this is going to be my turn when I'm going to try to win. So I'm going to let you draw a card. And let's see. There's the Path to Exile. All right.
Okay, so the Strict Protector might be going.
Need to pay for the path. Oh, he did. He did. Okay, okay, there's the tap Triumph. So Proctor dead, no protection. So if Mattia just casts a Scapeshift here, would that be game? Is there something that Pierre can have?
Okay, so
I guess we'll find out.
yeah.
I guess, does Surge give you protection as well? Is it just your permanence?
Uh,
Surge is
I'm going to put the card here.
you and your permanent. Okay, so you can still have Surge. Not just the creatures. I'm thinking of a different card. So Surge does give you and your permanents hexproof until end of turn. It prevents damage from black and red sources. Obviously, Valakut does look kind of red, but it is a colorless source. But hexproof until end of turn would be more than enough.
Yep. You and permanents you control gain Hexproof until the end of the turn.
Mattia trying to figure out how many lands is he gonna sack. I think that was 7 or 8.
And as you said, this Scapeshift was really popular pre Modern Horizons, right?
Yeah, it was one of those decks, especially before Modern Horizons, when there was just a lot of like linear decks. There was not a lot of interaction. There was no Force of Negation. There was no Solitude. There was no Grief. So most decks were like, hey, I have turn 3 Karn. Can you do something about it? Or, hey, I'm playing this Mono deck. I'm gonna win on turn 4. Are you gonna be able to stop me? Hey, my Scapeshift wins on turn 4. And like everybody was kind of just racing to a turn 3 or turn 4 kill, or a turn 3, one of those big cards.
And I've actually read an article recently about exactly that in Modern, like making the turn 3 Karn, for example, in Tron is not exactly enough anymore to win a game.
Yeah, yeah.
So Tron kind of had to adapt.
Yeah, Force of Negation is I know many people are saying that, hey, some of these new cards, perhaps a little too good, all this instant speed interaction for free. But Force of Negation is certainly doing a lot of good for the format. So a lot of Valakut triggers on the stack here. I think that the players are trying to figure out what's in the stack, or what exactly is going on. And the question is, does Pierre have the Surge or not? I believe he... That's a Hammer. Hammer targeting Solitude.
Okay, 1 more mana, another Hammer.
Okay, come on, Pierre. What is going on? Solitude, exile